Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Helen Vermillion, and I teach at the Dorothy Benson Center. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a basic casserole. And it's going to be a simple casserole. So, once you can master this, you should be able to make it fancier if you want. Let me get the casserole. Okay, so we're using BMX Cone 6 clay, and this is just a basic, simple casserole. Now, if we fire it to Cone 6, which is a mid-fire range, you can put this in the oven, you can put this in the dishwasher, microwave, it'll be perfectly fine. It is fired to Cone 6, so this is a Cone 6 glaze that's painted on. This is just a basic casserole. I just made a real rustic one because I kind of wanted to look rustic, I guess. But the key thing you need to remember is you got to have your handles big enough that you can grab it with a pot holder, okay? And I'll show you another one that I did. Okay, same thing, just a basic simple one, but in this case, the handles are a little bit different. Okay, I can still grab it with a pot holder. I did put stamps on it just to decorate it, and this can still go in the oven and everything. Now, when we take it up to that higher temperature, the bottom will not be glazed, but it's still mostly non-porous, okay? So, you can put, it's not gonna leak water or anything. Before we start on how to build a casserole, I need to talk about recycling clay. A lot of people don't realize that you can take clay that you've used and recycle it. So once you re-wet it, it'll go back soft again. Now, let's say you have super, super wet clay, all right? And you need to dry it out because it just got too mushy. One of the ways you can dry it out is you just kind of make it into, it doesn't have to be a clean cylinder, okay? You just kind of make it into an arch, and you just make a bunch of these and you let it sit. And in about an hour or a little bit more, they'll start to dry out because there's going to be air circulating everywhere. So this guy will start to dry out. Now, right now it's kind of wet. It's way too wet and sticky for me to use. So let's say I have some clay that is wet and some that is hard, okay? And I mixed in the hard one in here. Let me add some more. Okay, one thing you don't want to do is add something that's super dried out. So this one's pretty dried out, and what I'm gonna have to do is re-wet it for a while before I can wedge it back in here. It's too much trouble to try to get it in there. So I've got some hard, it's not that dry, but a little bit harder clay here. So what you do is to wedge this whole thing, and wedging is kind of like kneading bread, is a lot of work for some of you. So what you can do, and at the studio, we have that wire secured to a little wedging board, but we don't have that at home. So what I do is I'll slice it, and then you want to turn this like maybe 45-degree angle, and you keep doing this over and over, and this helps make it mix up a lot easier. So my clay is still kind of wet, but I don't think I have anything drier. So we'll just have to work with it, okay? And then you keep doing this, and it's amazing how it gets mixed up. So I'm gonna have to wedge this a little bit because it's way too wet. Let's see if I can get it to work. Okay. Sometimes when you're indoors in an air-conditioned situation, the clay actually dries out pretty quickly. Okay, this one is obviously super wet. Okay, so it's kind of like kneading bread. You're not trapping air in here. Okay. All right, so that's one way, and this guy's too wet. I'm gonna have to let him sit out. Let's see if I can find some clay that's not as wet, and we will have to clean up remove this wet clay off of the board. So you don't have to throw away your clay, okay? Sometimes, you know, you might make something and then it cracked or something. And then instead of trying to save it or try to fix the crack, it's really easier to just start all over again. Cracks are kind of like a pain to fix. Okay, I've got some clay that's a little bit drier. Let's see if I can get that off. Okay, this one, this part's really hard and this part's super wet. So let me see if I could wedge that much nicer. Okay, when it's super wet, it's really gets messy, but eventually it'll dry out. So I'm gonna mix that up, the hard part and the soft part. Okay. And if you find a piece that's like really hard, like a little knob, like here, this guy snuck in here. Okay. Oh, Shanette, you joined us. Great. Welcome to our basic clay. We're making casseroles today. Okay, so I'm still wedging this, okay? So it might take time, but it's doable. And you really don't want to waste your clay anyway. These are commercial clays and they've added a bunch of stuff to it. So I'm really not sure how well they'll do if you just dumped it outside. When I lived in a house, I did actually dump some clay outside and it didn't seem to like go back into the earth very right away. I think it's still there. Anyway, you wedge it and and because you want the even consistency. So I'm going one direction and kind of folding over, but somebody said it was like kneading bread. So you just don't want to trap the air. And I've got a really sticky situation on my board. So let's get that out. Usually if my board wasn't this wet, it absorbs enough of the moisture that I can get this guy dried out. Let me see if I can use canvas. Okay, so just in case you didn't get the note, you cannot wash your hands in the sink at home. You must take off all the clay in a little bowl and then get as much off as possible, you know, and I go through a lot of paper towels, wipe it off with a paper towel, and then you can go wash it in the sink. Now, what do you do, like if you're like me in a condo situation, you have this bowl of water, clay water, I just let it evaporate. And then it becomes like sludge. Oh, and that's slipped. Oh gosh, I just poured it all over. Okay, I might be the Julia Child of clay, working with clay here. All right. Oh, I know. Here we go. You can also make yourself a wedging board, and this is just a piece of wood that's covered in canvas, and I staple gunned it. But if you do have one of these made, you need to wet your canvas and stretch it as tightly as possible. Okay, so this is kind of really my wedging board. Okay, we need to wedge this out. I mean, not wedge, knead it out. Yeah, wedge it out. Try to get as even consistency as possible. And sometimes you can slam it down if you want, but it creates dust in the house. Okay, the thing we need to do is roll this out. We're gonna make the bottom of the casserole, but what kind of shape should we make it? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take 2 pieces of paper. Let's see if I can get the paper. Okay, I'm gonna take 2 pieces of paper, any kind of paper is fine. And for the demo purposes, I'm gonna make a really small casserole, okay? So to go a little bit faster, but I'm gonna fold the paper into fourths. And you don't have to do this, but probably when you bake something, you want like a even amount of space. Um, you can do an oval shape, but if you make a shape that's kind of like, let me draw that for you. If you make your casserole like, let's say you decide to make it like a fish shape, okay? Right? Well, this might cook a lot faster and this might burn up and cook faster because it's surrounded by a small amount of space. So maybe that's not a good idea, okay? But any kind of shape, you can do oval, you can do square, probably a rectangle, okay? And you probably can do something like a clover leaf, 4-leaf clover leaf, okay? Now, the thing you have to be careful is you don't have nooks and crannies where the food can get stuck. So even on this corner of a square one, you might want to round the corners. Okay. So I've got this, I folded into fourths, and then I'm gonna cut it with the scissors. Let's see. I'm gonna make a real small one, okay? Okay. So now I have 2 of these, the exact same shape. So we got a little miniature casserole. This is gonna be our template. You need one for the bottom slab. And then when we build the wall around it, you need this to make sure it's the same shape, okay? So first I need to roll out the slab. Okay, so once again, I will take, I know what I need to do. Okay, what I need to do is I need to get a piece of fabric to put under here. There we go. And the reason why is it makes it lifting your slab off the surface a lot easier, and it keeps it from sticking to your board, just in case. So I'm going to put that there. And starting from the center, you want to go center out. And you want to kind of keep turning it, okay? All right, flip it over, keep turning it. And sometimes you'll get an air bubble in there. If you want, you can poke that out. Okay, now it's starting to get thinner. So I am going to put 2 of these dowel rods. Now these are 3/8 of an inch in the diameter. So I really want my bottom of my casserole or the walls to be less than that. So technically I need to go buy some more dowel rods. You can use paint stirrers, you know, and you can sometimes stack 2 layers of paint stirrers, but anything you can find, wooden sticks, whatever. And what this does, it keeps you from rolling unevenly, and then it keeps you from rolling less than that 3/8 of an inch diameter. So the roller will hit the dowel rods and that'll keep it from going down, okay? So clay is a little bit wet. Flip it over one more time. It's kind of like cooking in the kitchen. And all I have is just a simple, like a stick. I guess you can saw a broom handle up if you still have wooden broom handles. Okay, now it's hitting both of the dowel rods and I've got an even thing. Right? So if I wanted this a little bit less, I would have to go get some new dowel rods from Home Depot. They don't cost that much. All right, now this is my template. So I'm going to take my needle tool and you want to hold it straight up and down. And you just cut it, okay? Oops. Now you kind of don't want to use like cardboard for the bottom part because the cardboard, when it gets wet, it's going to get wobbly or what wonky or whatever you call it. And that'll distort the bottom of your casserole. Okay, so that's the bottom. Now we need this to be the bottom. So you can just flip this over. At this point, I need to use some kind of a board. And I usually use my old cutting boards, okay? And I'll put that on there, okay? So the template will help you, make sure you still have that same shape. All right, we're gonna set this aside because we need to build the wall. So let me see, where am I gonna put it? Okay. All right, now, once again, you can, if you want to measure exactly how long you want, but it's usually very long. So I do it in 2 pieces because my space, I don't have that much space to make a long strip. So once again, we wedge it really good. And then I need to use the fabric here. And once again, you want your dowel rods, okay? Now, if you want, you can gently pound it to get it down a little bit. And sometimes you'll hear an air bubble pop. Okay. So this time I need 2, well, I might be able to do 1 long strip, okay? All right. So once again, flip it over. No, I need more clay for that. Okay, I got a big air bubble right here. Okay, this is gonna be not enough, but that's okay because I can show you how to attach joints, join it together, okay? All right, that's not going to be anywhere near enough. All right, and if you just take some straight edge, but I'm just going to cut that, and then we'll make it very shallow. I'm making a miniature casserole, okay? Just so that it goes a little bit faster for the demo. All right, I can get 2. Now, at this point, I normally will let this dry more, harden a little bit more. But since we're doing a demo, I can't sit around and wait. So what I need to do is bring that, need to bring that board over. Okay, so let's move this here. Okay, we got this guy back. And what we're gonna do is attach the wall, okay? All right, I think I'm gonna switch over to a turntable. Okay. We'll do it this way. Okay, we'll do it this way because then it turns and I don't have to move the whole thing. All right, so we're gonna attach the wall here, and it's probably not enough, just one strip. Yeah, that's not enough. So I'm gonna have to join it, okay? I don't want to join it at weak spots. Those are the corners. So I'm probably going to, I'm gonna cut this down. You want to cut this at a, wherever you're gonna join it, you kind of want to cut it at a bevel. Okay. So one, and then a good idea to do, I forgot to tell you, is to smooth everything out. Okay. And you can use a sponge, just be real gentle, or you can use a rib. Okay. It don't push too hard because it'll squish your clay out. Okay. Now, what we need to do next is we have to score it. So I'm going to put the wall this way and the joints will be here. So I'm going to score it. You want to score it pretty deeply. And keep in mind that my clay is super wet right now. Normally you would let it set up and dry a little bit more. And this guy, I cut this side at a bevel. I don't know if you can see. So I'm going to score this because this is going to be the joint. Okay. Now, at this point, if you want, you can put a little bit of slip on there. And that's just clay slurry. But not too much because it gets sopping wet. So carefully bring it here. Set it on there. It's always good to start small, not this small, but a little bit bigger. And then when you get your confidence up, you can go larger, okay? Larger is gonna be a little bit more challenging. Okay, so now I'm gonna cut this off at an angle. Okay. Now what's gonna happen is once I attach the other side, and I'm gonna do it right now because this way you can see better. I'm gonna push this down. Let's see if I can show it to you. Okay, I'm gonna push this part down kind of gently into the bottom clay piece. Support the outside. Okay, so I've gently pushed that down. And then I'm going to, when I have the other part on here, put a little worm here, okay? Because we don't want all that area like that. All right, I need to get the other one done. So I will bevel the end of one of this one. Okay. All right, let's see, which way does that go? Do this right? No, that's not right. Okay, so it goes this way. Okay, normally it wouldn't be this soft, all right? So this one goes this way, and I'm just gonna just get that out of the way. Okay, now once again, I have to scratch out this part. Okay, and then I'm gonna scratch up the bottom of this guy. Okay, this time we need to scratch up the where it's going to join right there, and on this one too. That's not right. Okay, I never can get the bevels right. It needs to be cut. Which way does it need to be? Is that right? No, that's not right. Okay, it needs to be sliced this direction. Okay. All right, so we'll cut, slice, do that. And then we'll put a little bit of slip on there. I'll just use a brush this time. And this is, once again, this is clay slurry. Okay. So I will put this like this. That's the joint. Push it really good if you can. And then when I come to here, I'm going to have to slice this and score this part now. Okay. And put a little bit of slip on. Push it in a little bit. Okay. Okay, the reason why we had the second template is that once we get this all done, you want to make sure it's the same size. It doesn't have to be exact. You can flare out. You just don't want it to flare in. Okay, so once again, I have to seal this and support the outside. And normally you will be working with stiffer clay. This one is a little, you don't want to dry out your clay too much, all right? You just want it just stiff enough that it's not going to get wonky on you. And then you want to seal that. And this is important right here at the top. Make sure that's sealed. I can always add more clay there. So we'll seal that side. That side. Okay. Now, let's finish the inside before we do the outside. So I'm going to make a little worm. And your worm needs to be slightly wetter than this clay, just slightly, okay? And the reason why is when you roll it out, it's going to dry out the worm. So you just want it to be a little bit wetter. Okay, this one's too long. And you just want a little, we're filling in those little indentations we make. So you support the outside, push with your finger. My fingernail's making marks, that's okay. We can smooth it out. Okay. So this way the food doesn't, well, we're filling in those little ridges, but also the food doesn't get stuck in a sharp corner there. One of the things you have to keep in mind is when you make functional ware, like things for in the kitchen for food, you have to keep in mind, is the food going to get stuck in those places? It's going to be too hard to clean, and things like that. Okay, so I'm putting another worm in here. Okay. All right, now I need to support this and smooth it out the best I can. And you really want to push that clay in there. You're not smoothing out just the surface. You're really pushing it in there, okay? And sometimes you'll trap air in one of those little spaces and just pop it out, push it, and it'll pop out. Okay. So sometimes you have to add a little bit more clay right here, like a little teeny tiny clay where the joint is, because you may have pushed out so much of it. And sometimes you don't. So right now I don't have to on that side. This side seems okay. Okay. All right. Once we get that, obviously this is stretched out a little bit. It's a little bit too long, but we're not going to worry about that right now because we have to do the outside seam. So on the outside, I'm going to kind of pull up, okay? Once again, support the inside so you don't push too hard, but you want those two segments of clay to merge together. Okay, right here, I kind of have an overhang. Right now, the clay is wet enough, I can shape it back. And then I have this seam right here, so I will try to merge those. Okay. So right now, I'm just kind of sometimes you might have to go down, okay? Well, that's because I had an overhang right there. I'll be trying to. Okay. Now we have to put another very small worm there. And sometimes you don't have to add a worm, but usually I have to because I have all these ridges showing up. Okay, support it on the inside, add the little worm. Okay, I am pushing and pulling. Okay, pushing and pulling. Okay, so you have this messy thing here. I'm going to take my flexible metal rib. Okay, I'm going to support the inside and see if I can bring it up, gently smooth it. I'm not putting too much pressure on it. See if I can smooth it out as much as possible. Okay, so I've got a lumpy mess. Okay, that's fine because you really need a 90-degree angle piece of rib or wood or something, but it has to be 90-degree angle. And you're going to, it's gonna be flat on the board. And this way your wall is gonna be up and down. And I'm gonna keep doing this until I get it pretty good. Okay, sometimes I need to support. And what happens, you'll get excess clay come out. We are going to trim the bottom, so right now I'm just trying to get a straight wall. So I hope you realize hand making, hand building, it is a time-consuming process, all right? So you want to make your piece as unique as possible. Otherwise, it's just easier to go buy something from the store. Okay, so I'm gonna keep doing that until I get it smooth. Okay. Now I'm gonna just check this real quick to see how far off I am. I'm pretty off here, okay? What I can do, I can either leave it like that because it's bigger on top, or I can gently push it in. and reshape it, okay? Okay, right now my clay is way too soft, but that's okay. All right. So your rim is going to be uneven. We can fix that later. Shake this a little bit better. Okay. Now, what's important is it's pretty thick right here. Okay, right here, because we added that coil here. So, and also when you have a sharp edge like this, when you try to slide it in the oven, it's going to catch on your rack. So I actually cut away at an angle, and let's see, I'll use this. Okay, so I'll just kind of cut away at a 45-degree angle. I'll start out small. You don't want to cut too much at one time. Okay. Try to take that out. Like that's not coming out, is he? Okay, let's try it this way. That little template paper, that keeps it from sticking to your board. So right now the excess is sticking to the board, but there's, I should be able to see the paper pretty soon. Basically, I'm beveling the bottom. Okay, so now it doesn't look like it's growing out of the tabletop, you know, it's got a slight indentation. Okay, now I can keep cleaning that up. And I think I hit the paper, so I need to stop there. I see the paper. Okay, you're probably going to go in about maybe an eighth or 1/16 of an inch into the paper. The paper is going to stick out about that much because we're beveling the bottom. Okay. So now I need to check this again. Okay, so you keep going back and forth, checking the height, you know, things get moved around. Okay, I will check the shape again. Okay. It's good enough. Okay. Right now I don't want to trim it because I know my clay is a little bit too wet, but when I let it dry a little bit longer, I can trim it, and it helps if you kind of have a turntable. But you can also use use this and mark maybe with tape where the height should be on the lowest part, and then you can notch it as you go along, you know, and then cut that off. Okay, I'm just going to eyeball this one. Okay, so normally you will want to wait until your clay is a little bit stiffer. It's way too wet. Okay, and then you don't want any sharp corners, no sharp edges, because those will get knocked off. They'll chip easily. Okay, so you want to take a squeezed out sponge, which acts as your sandpaper, and you want to smooth it out as much as possible, rounding those edges. And when your piece is a little bit more dry, you can actually use a squeezed out sponge like a sandpaper and really smooth out any lumps or bumps you have. One of the nicest thing about making a kind of a rustic uneven casserole is it just seems to have more character. So when you bake something in it, it just adds, it just makes your food look prettier, I think. Okay, instead of like a store-bought perfectly shaped uh, casserole. Okay, so mine's not perfect. You can just, as it slowly dries, you can keep an eye on it and, you know, perfect it. What you don't want to do at this point is really push it in and out, because the clay will remember you did that and crack on you later. Okay, so you want to start being gentle with your clay piece and form it. Okay, so I'll have to trim this later when it's a little bit more dry because it's a bit wonky. All right, let's talk about handles now. There is a way where we call it pulling a handle. You can make any handle you want. You can go online and look at all the different cool handles people make. So the most simple one would probably be, you can roll out a piece. Okay, so I'll show you a couple of ways you can do a handle. You can just roll out a slab. And always roll out a piece bigger than you think you need. And you can, here we go. You can cut it any shape you want, okay? So let's just say I want a handle like that. What you need to do is, and once again, you know, try to let it not be as wet, but you want to smooth out any edges. At this point, if you want, you can make designs on here. Let's see. I got this stamp, so. Okay, so I have a little, I made a little leaf stamp. So I got little, let's see if that shows up. Okay, let's see, little leaves. All right, now I'm going to attach this on here. Now, don't forget, you got to make your handle large enough that you can grab it easily with pot holders. And don't forget, things, clay shrinks about 10 to 13%. So you got to kind of gauge that. Now, I can put it on here like this. I can put it on here like this, all kinds of ways, all right? So the best thing to do is really look online to see. Now, if I want it to be kind of curved, you know, if I put it on right now, it's going to sag. So what you want to do is you want to take maybe even a toilet paper, an old toilet paper roll or paper towel roll, and you want to drape it until it stiffens up. So I would drape it, but you gotta have that paper towel barrier because it'll stick, because it clay shrinks as it dries. So once it gets stiff, then you can put it on. Right now, I can't put it on, but let's pretend it is stiff. And you would score where you're gonna attach it. And then, so you would like, where's my scratching tool? Okay, well, oh, here it is. So let's say this is already stiff, okay? You would score it where you're gonna put it. Now, don't forget to have enough space underneath. You can grab this thing and put some slip on it, okay? And this guy's a little bit long, so I should cut it. and you would attach it, okay? So once you attach it, you know, you have to decide what you're gonna do about the ends. Do you want to keep it blunt like that? Or do you want to smooth it in? Okay, and if you feel like where you attach it is not strong enough, you can reinforce it by putting a tiny bit of clay right there. If you feel like it's going to got too thin maybe when you were, you know, putting it on. So you can do all kinds of things. All right. Now, this one I'm gonna make him turn this way. And you just want to blend everything, make sure it's on there really good. Add slip if you needed to. All right, so I'll be attaching, you know, something like that. Right now it's a little bit too wet. Okay. The other kind of handle you can try to do is you can take two pieces, two snakes, two worms actually, or two snakes, yeah, little snakes. Or I guess you can do three, okay? Now, don't forget, when you're rolling a worm out on your tabletop or between your hands, it's going to dry out more. And if your hands tend to be on the warm side, the heat from your hands really does dry it out. So I'm going to make two skinny worms. And I'm going to try to make it as even as possible. And don't let it dry out, so I'll add some water. The canvas is actually soaking up some of the moisture. What does it say? I have a chat thing going on. Okay, hold on, let me see my glasses. Okay. Okay, that's okay. You can come back and this is being recorded. So you can come back and watch it. What is this? Okay. All right. So we made the two worms. Oh, actually it's one worm right now. Okay, you kind of want to make sure your worms are on the wet side. So you want to wet it again, because as we twist this, it's going to break if it's too dry. This here. Okay, so I've got kind of the same size, and you gently twist it. Okay, so you can either twist it this much, or you can twist even further. And if you're real careful, you can keep going as long as your worms are wet. And so you have this, or if you wanted to flatten it out, you could gently flatten it out a little bit, okay? So once again, you would drape this until it got stiff, and then you would attach it, all right? So on this one, I would definitely reinforce it at where it joins, okay? All right, so that's another, you can actually attach it to the rim, but I'm afraid food might get stuck in the crevices, so that's pretty. Okay, I'm going to show you how to pull a handle. So let me move all this. Okay. Pulling a handle, it does make a most elegant handle, I guess. Yeah. It takes a lot of practice, okay, but it does make a beautiful, beautiful handle. And don't be afraid of it. Your clay needs to be even consistency, so wedge it really good. And there's different ways to do this, but this is how I learned, so I end up doing it this way all the time. make a cone shape, okay? All this is going to be waste. This just gives you a place to grab on. Now, you're going to need to keep this thing super wet. So gently just wet the whole thing. And then very carefully, a little bit at a time, and it has to stay super wet. You're going to kind of squeeze, okay, as evenly as you can. So this is why it takes practice. You got to squeeze it. And if your clay has like lumpy thingies in it, it's going to tear it off. The handle's going to get torn off at that point. So you really do need to wedge it really well. So mine's not even right now, but I'll just keep doing it. You got to do it slowly, and it has to be so wet. Okay, almost feels like you're working with soft serve ice cream, or maybe more like cream cheese consistency. Okay, so you keep doing it, and then my hand is about, the opening is about like that right now. You can make it thinner if you want, but okay, so I'm just trying to evenly squeeze it as much as possible. I'm going to cut this off because this is going to give me trouble. Okay, I'll just keep doing that. Turn it, do the other side. Okay, mine's not perfect. So you're doing it just a little bit at a time. And you need to do it, you know, with lots of water. And when I'm probably going to just use from here to here, all right? Okay, now I'm going to take my thumb and kind of like indent it right there. And if you have fingernails, it'll make a mark. Okay. All right. So now what you do is you have a few choices here. You can put it on the edge of a table and see how it makes the most beautiful curve. Okay. And let it stiffen up before you put it on. Or you can drape it. Once again, put a paper towel barrier, and you can drape it probably over a can, or I guess you can do it over this, but depending on what you want to drape it on. Or some people will, if they want consistency, they'll draw the shape of the handle, and then they'll let it set up in that shape, okay, until it stiffens up, okay. Then you can cut it and attach it. But right now, my piece is very wet. Normally you want it to stiffen up, but I'll show you what happens, okay. So these pulled handles are really, I think they're really beautiful. There's something about them. Okay, so, and then you can just attach it. Okay, right now this is way too wet, okay? So if it stiffened up, you can attach it, and it's really a pretty handle, right? So that's your basic construction, and you keep an eye on it, and you just take a squeezed out sponge and you keep cleaning it and everything, all right? Now, these guys, the handles are going to dry out sooner than the rest of it. So I put piece of plastic, you know, like saran wrap, and cover that so they don't dry out. And then I cover the whole thing with plastic. Now, if you have a large piece, a larger piece, okay, your bottom is probably going to warp. So on large pieces, you want to get a bag of rice or beans and set it in the middle. And that weighs it down so that the center of your slab doesn't buckle up. Now this guy has got to sit on, right now it's wet, so it has to sit on a surface that moves. So like fabric, all right? And anything you hand build, you have to let it dry very slowly, okay? So this is just a demo piece, so I'm kind of like moving it around, but you want to set it on. You don't want to keep lifting it up and moving it because it's going to distort it, and it's also going to weaken the joints and everything. This is just a demo piece, so I'm going to take this paper off right now because I don't want it in with the rest of the clay because it'll rot. So I'm just going to take any paper that's on here and I'm going to recycle it. Okay, so you have to let your casserole dish covered, check on it every day. Sometimes you have to uncover it for about an hour to, let it dry slowly. Don't have like an air conditioner vent blowing on it directly because it'll dry it out unevenly and it'll crack on you. Anything hand built needs to be dried very slowly and covered. All right, so that was our demo piece for the casserole. Now, I'm going to show you next. I think we haven't done the pinch pot container. So, I don't know if people use garlic keepers or not, and they're just little round. They're just little containers that keep your fresh garlic. I guess it's a good way to store it. I'm not really sure. Okay, so we'll make a little pinch pot container. And working with pinch pots is fun, really lots of fun because you can do so many different things. You can make so many things based on the pinch pot. Slabs are nice too, but sometimes you need more space for a slab. And rolling out a large even slab is kind of challenging sometimes. So we're going to try a pinch pot container, and maybe I should show you some examples. Let's see, where do I have examples? Okay, here's one that, so it's two pinch pots that are joined together, and then we have a simple lid, okay? And you can store stuff in it. You can put sugar, okay, and then you can make a little notch here if you want to put a little sugar spoon or honey. You can put salt in here, okay, spices, and I just happen to carve the top. Okay, once again, the bottom is not going to be glazed, but it's going to be vitreous. That means it's not going to soak up lots of water, right? So you can make something as simple like this and then carve the top just for fun. I guess this looks like leaves. I mean, these are leaves. You can put loose tea leaves in here, okay? And I do have an uneven opening. And this part where the lid and the bottom comes in contact won't be glazed. So that's going to show as a line. And the reason why I have an uneven opening is so that if it was completely smooth, it'll slide off because this one doesn't have a lip. Here's another one, and this is white clay. And because the glaze is a almost white color, the place that's not glazed doesn't show up. Now this one has an even lid opening. So normally this would slide off, but I put a lip on it, okay? The lip doesn't get glazed, and actually it's a pain to make a lip, okay? It's easy if you throw on the wheel, but hand building, it's kind of a hassle. But so this is, and once again, this is a very relief carved surface, right? Very deeply carved. And the bottom isn't glazed, okay? Now, if you want, you can take those two pinch pots and actually make an animal. Once again, it's a container. Once again, the lid's not going to slide off because I actually have a notch right there and a little notch there, okay? It actually is not as sturdy because it got glazed on the lip. Now this is a lower temperature, so that's why we were able to glaze it on the lip because we could put it on stilts. At a higher temperature, the metal of the stilts will melt. So this one, normally I wouldn't glaze here, and it has a better grip, but this was glazed by somebody else, so she glazed the whole thing, including the bottom. So this one, because it's animal, I attached, feet, ears and all that. So you can do that also. And here's the last one I'm going to show you. Once again, it's very simple. This one is not glazed. Once again, I just cut the lid open, but I have notches so it doesn't slide off. Okay, so this one is, if you can see this, it's a cat. All right. And it's not glazed on the inside either because this is an incense, to burn incense in. Okay. So making 2 pinch pots is easy. Making the actual pinch pot might be a little bit challenging. So we'll take a big lump of clay, wedge it really good. Okay, I'm gonna, you can be a perfectionist and have the exact same size. I don't really pay attention to that, okay? So you want 2 roundish lumps of clay, and make sure there's no creases or anything. Okay, what you want to do is turn it into a round ball and stick your thumb in there, okay? What you need to be careful, you got to support it. What you need to be careful is you don't squeeze the rim at all. Avoid that as possible. It's still going to flare out, but you have to squeeze it a little bit at a time. Okay. And you're going to kind of pay attention to the thickness. All right. So we're going to just squeeze it, and so I'm avoiding opening the rim. Now, sometimes my thumb isn't long enough, so I'll just press it with my thumb and roll it on the table. And you just can, and you want it about no less than 1/4 of an inch thickness. You can always deduct, but if you make it too thin, trying to add clay to it is not easy. Okay, I've got a dried out piece of clay right there. Okay, so, oh. Okay, I was picking up too many of the dried out pieces of clay. So we just keep this part curved in as much as possible. So you keep thinning this out, but you got to do it a little bit at a time. You can't just push one part. Okay, I'm gonna have to use 2 hands now. Now sometimes you've gotten bigger, so I'll stick my finger in there and press down, try to get the bottom a little bit thinner. And sometimes I'll just try to push the clay out like that. Okay. So we're still keeping the rim. See how much it flared out? We don't want that thin at all. Okay. So now I'm gonna, I want that level. All right. It's uneven, but it's level. And Then I'm going to do it, make another one. Oh, I flared it out way too much, so just re-wedge it. Okay. So keep that opening as small as you can. Okay, now at this point, I need to kind of make them match. So I'll kind of eyeball that and kind of carefully squeeze this out a little bit, still trying to avoid making the rim too thin. So I don't want to do any further of this because I don't want it to get it thin. So instead, what I can do is shrink this down and I'll just kind of like squish it. Okay, a little bit at a time. All right, then I'll pat it and it's still off, but that's okay. Now we're going to score this, but what I do is I just take water and I wet it because I'm not going to use slip at this point. And I'm going to score it heavily. And then I'm going to wet this a little bit. And then I'm going to score this heavily. Okay. Now you're going to take these two, try not to have a hole anywhere. And gently holding it, you kind of gently wiggle, wiggle, wiggle that, and you feel the suction going on. Make sure there's no holes there. Okay. You'll feel it gripping. Once it does that, we need a tool. Okay, here. You can use a tongue presser or whatever. You want to go push this. You want to push it down into the bottom. Let me turn this off. I think you can see it better. Okay. You want to go all the way around, pushing it down. Don't push it so hard that you poke a hole. You want to trap that air in there. You do not want that air to escape at all. Okay, we do that and then we do the reverse. Okay, I flipped it over. And then, so it starts to look like skeleton teeth, okay? So one of the reasons why I don't add slip is then all that slurry is gonna come squeezing out. And we kind of made the slurry by wiggling it. Now I've got to fill in that space. So you want to take, and it's okay if you don't get this exact, we can always reshape, we'll shape it later and we'll shave it off if we have to. So now I'm going to take a piece of clay and then I will gently, but make sure at this point you can feel the air trapped in there and it'll move around like a balloon. Okay, so I don't have enough, that's okay. Just keep adding. Okay. All right, now, the most helpful thing I found is this flexible rib, metal rib, and I can gently push and pull. Now, you don't have to use that. You can use a stiffer one if you have one. Okay, so gently push and pull. Now I'm going a little bit fast. And sometimes you'll hear the air bubble. Okay, now the air is trapped in there. And I will take the reason why I like this is because I can flex it and then I can push and pull gently and smooth this out even further. Right now it looks like a potato, okay? That's okay. So and you can smooth out any dents you have. Oops. Okay, at this point, very, very, very carefully, okay? You gotta do this at a little bit at a time or else you'll pop it because it's like a balloon right now. You're gonna gently shape it into whatever shape you want. I'm gonna try to do it round for you, okay? So you have to kind of have a big dent right here. Hopefully that'll go away. And because there's air trap, the air is pushing out in the opposite direction. So any dents, sometimes you can get rid of it by trying to get the air to push it out for you. And this is the joint right there. I was trying to get it up to be smooth. And if you do it a little bit at a time, you can get it any shape you want. Okay, I'm getting it rounder. So the key is to do it a little bit at a time. And if you made your pinch pots the even thickness of the walls, you shouldn't have a thin spot that will be weakened. Um, it might tear and your air will pop out. But if you had your pinch pots done right, it should be okay. Okay, that's close to a ball, right? Now, I want that to be not as lumpy. So I will take my flexible metal tool, all right, and I would curve it and then kind of, I'm pushing into the piece. So what you're doing is not making the surface slick, but you're actually smoothing it out by pushing down a little bit. And if this is flex, it creates a curve. My hands are too wet. Okay, if your clay is, if you have a big ball and it's so soft, the weight's going to push down and your bottom's going to flatten out. So what you do is, as it slowly dries or hardens, you're going to keep reshaping that bottom. Okay, so right now it's a little bit slick, wet, so I'm just going to have to let it slowly dry out and then I can keep reshaping it. Once you get this done, don't just leave it and let it dry, because the clay is going to shrink. There's going to be air pressure in there and it's going to crack your clay. So let's say it was really pretty dry and you like the shape and you couldn't work on it right away. Wrap it up really good, but what I do is I take my needle tool and I make a little hole, I just pierce it. So any air, as it shrink, any excess air can come out. Now, normally I would let this sit a while and let it dry out. And sometimes you can just leave it out for about an hour and it'll dry out enough that you can keep working on it. We need to cut this open for the lid. So I'm going to try to do that even at the super wet stage, okay? You wouldn't want to do this at a super wet stage. So let's just pretend it's a little bit drier. Now, I'm going to switch over to so we can see better. Okay. So let's see. It's a little bit wet, but the heat actually from my hands and the dryer with the air conditioned room is kind of helping it dry out. All right. So you want to cut an opening. Now, if you wanted to carve, you would kind of sketch out your carving with a pencil. You just, I mean, or something blunt like a pencil. Okay, here we go. Okay, you don't want undercut, I mean, cuts. Okay, let me see if I can do that. You don't want cuts that go in like that, because then your lid's going to catch there and it's not going to come off, right? So I'm going to, I know, let's say I wanted to do a face of a head of a cat, kind of like thing. So I would kind of draw out. You can sketch your piece on a piece of thin plastic like saran wrap with a Sharpie. And then you can lay that plastic over and then make a mark so you know where to cut if you don't want to do it freehand. Okay, so this is going to be my cat head opening. Okay. So that's what it looks like. And I've got the ear. So remember I said you need the notches so it doesn't slide off. So these will act as my notches. It might slide off at the chin area. So maybe I'll make a, well, I'll just leave it like that. See if it slides off. All right. When this is a little bit stiffer, but not too dry, you have to cut it open. Okay. And you also need to have some small pieces of paper towel ready. All right, so you have the small pieces of paper towel. So I'm going to cut now. Once you stick your knife in here and you want to cut it at a 45-degree angle, if you do it horizontal, it's gonna slide off. If you do it up and down, it's probably gonna fall in. So you want to aim for a 45-degree angle. So, and make sure your blade is long enough. And then I'm gonna cut. So normally this is a little bit drier, and I'm probably not gonna be able to get this lid off because it's a little bit too wet. It's resealing itself. So, and once you stick your blade in, don't try to pull it out because you'll get uneven. Okay, I can get some of it off. Okay, so I cut it open, and then I'm going to put little pieces of paper towel there. So it doesn't seal back up. And you need to put it back on. All right. All right, so I can't get this lid off. I need a knob of some sort. So I need to make a knob. And I guess I can either make his nose a knob, but then he'll have to have a big nose, or I can make it look like he's got a fish in his mouth. And that way, I kind of have a knob. So I'll make a little tiny fish. You don't want to make this thin, okay? Because it'll break right off when you hold on to it. Oh, that doesn't look like a fish. Yeah, this doesn't quite look like a fish right now. Okay, so well, that doesn't work because then the lid's going to come off this way. So it's going to have to be a nose. Unless I have like something landing on his nose. So, okay. So it's going to have to be a nose. I'm going to have to make a cone shape here. Wet the nose area. Score it really good. I mean, he can have a butterfly sitting on his nose too. I'm going to jiggle it so it has suction. And I'm going to take this tool, smooth it out. He looks like he's got a Sesame Street character nose right now. It looks like a big eggplant on there. I'm going to put two of those little round things they have. This clay was so wet, I didn't have to score it. move this down. So I'm making his mouth area right now. And I'm gonna have to give him a tall nose because I have to be able to grab this knob thing. Blend everything as much as I can. Sometimes actually I can take the lid off. Well, I can't right now because it's stuck on there because it's so wet. And I can push out those little chubby parts and sculpt the top a little bit better. Actually, I'm gonna push out the nose part too. And then okay. So, okay, so I've distorted the top lid, so I'm just gonna squeeze it in, okay, because I gave him a chin. So you kind of see that, okay? And then I squeeze in here so I have a place to grip. His nose is a little bit too, needs to be broad. And then I can either put eyeballs in there or I can carve out his eye area. So it's starting to look like a cat, I think. Yeah. And this will be the place I grab and the lid. So right now it's sopping wet, so it doesn't work, but I can shape this a little bit. I can actually shape the whole thing if I don't want. Yeah. And then as it dries, you can carve it, shape it, whatever. So you do have to really keep an eye out, check it all the time. If it gets too dry, then you can't really do all this. You got to add everything while it's still kind of wet. So right now I'm just working way too wet. It's really hard. Okay, but okay. So once you get all this done, you attach everything, you're fine with it. What you're going to do then is you're going to take I like this tool. Okay, it's a 6-inch. It's called a ribbon tool. Okay, I like this because I can carve out all the excess, and you got to be careful you don't punch through. The only part you don't carve out too much is the rim, because you have to have clay, space there for it can sit on it. And then you carve out this side too. You want to smooth out that seam too, where you can see where we joined it. But you want to carve out all the excess. And I wonder if I have an example of that. Let me see. So this guy was really messy and thick on the inside, like the one I'm working on right now. And once it was all done on the outside and it was dry enough, I didn't carve away too much of the rim, but I carved out as much as possible, especially where I added like the nose, because that's gonna be thick. So I try to carve in close to the nose, the ears, and wherever I added stuff, I just want to make sure. But all this got carved out, and it does take a while. It does require patience, but it helps to make it thinner. Okay, and then once your piece is after you finish carving, you can take out your squeezed out sponge and smooth everything out. Right now, this is too wet, so I can't do it. Don't get your pieces too wet because it'll collapse on you. Okay. So this was a fun project to do. So let's say you wanted a garlic keeper. Then maybe you would dent these areas to make it look like a garlic, what do you call it? Garlic thingy. Okay. And maybe you'll make, you should do this probably, you might have to do it several times. And then you can like get this guy. Let me take this off. We don't want to mix the paper with the clay because it rots. When you recycle it. Otherwise, it just burns out if you got to accidentally trap. So let's say this was a round ball again, and it was all sealed up. Okay. And you wanted to make a garlic, you wanted to make it look like a garlic thing. So we're pretending we're starting back up. You would try to, your air is still trapped. So you would try to dent in those, I guess that's where the garlic cloves are. All right, so that's smooth. Okay, my clay was super wet, so I can, and you would shape it like a garlic clove shape. And if you don't know what one looks like, just go get one and just copy that, learn from that. So, and then you kind of want that stem part. So I would add clay for that. Okay. You have to score it and add it on. I didn't do the scoring because I'm just showing you real quick. Now, don't forget your clay is going to shrink 10 to 13%. So you have to make sure it's slightly big enough that you'll be able to get the garlic in there. Okay, this is looks more like a pumpkin. So we got to squeeze out top part. I'm just gonna make it blunt here because this will be a knob, okay? Okay, so let's just say you shaped it. Okay, I've got the air trapped in there right now. And got because you can always carve into this later some more. Right now, you're just trying to get the basic shape. You don't do the carving yet. Okay, and then that looks like a gift. It needs to be a little bit thinner. I'll just cut this off. Okay. Okay, so now you need to make the opening. So once again, if you just do it like this, then it'll slide off. So I need a notch somewhere. So what I'm going to do is probably like a wavy cut. How's that? And don't forget at a 45-degree angle. Okay, so that would be your lid, and it's extremely messy on the inside. You would seal that up really good and carve out all the excess, okay? Now, I think with garlic, you have to have holes in it. So once it's a little bit more stiff, you might carve out, this could be part of your design. You can kind of carve, once it's, drier, you can, let's see if I can do this. It's hard, it's almost impossible to carve cleanly when it's wet like this. Okay, so let's say you made a ridge like that, where they have ridges and lines. I think that's what they look like. I have to look at one, okay? So let's just say you carved all these lines to make it look like, and you would smooth everything out so it won't be ugly like this, okay? So you gotta let the clay dry before you carve, because it's impossible to do it this way. Okay, so since it needs airing out, yeah, I might actually, not round holes, but I might sneak in some oblong holes here. Or I could do around whatever you want to do. So I might sneak in some oblong rows, and once I cleaned that up and everything, it looked nice, but right now it's a total mess. Okay, so that could be a garlic holder, have all these lines on it. I think that's what they have. And the lid, and you could put garlic in there, and it's supposed to keep, okay? But you do need to carve out all this excess when it's a lot drier. And see, right now it's too wet, I can't carve it, but you're gonna have to gauge where you attach the stem, it's gonna be too thick there. So you kind of have to guess how thick it is and then carve it out. What you don't want to do is carve out all that, because you need that rim for the lid to sit on. So I want to leave as much of the rim as possible. So okay, so let's just say I kept carving and carving, okay? And then once again, take out your squeezed out sponge, and you want to smooth everything out as much as possible. You don't want the sharp edges because they'll chip, but you want this as smooth as possible. Don't distort that, okay? Always put this back on here. And I don't know where it's supposed to go now. Yeah, you might want to make notches, because I really have no clue where this is supposed to end up. Well, that's weird. Oh, wait. It's got to be here. So it got distorted, so you have to have that little tissue paper there, so it doesn't seal back up, and make sure it's on there good, okay? So we learned two things today and lots more. The casserole dish, start out small, not tiny, but small. And practice your pinch pots because you can make all kinds of cool things with it. All right. So thank you very much. And our last class, I believe, is next week. Same time next week. We'll see you. Bye-bye.